This is the United Uprising channel. Welcome to today's show. It's the season that we make the Yuletide gay, but you don't really need to make the Yuletide gay. All one needs to do is pretty much look at everything that's trending because we're living in a pretty gay world. So I wanted to cover the Yule log. And I want to make it clear to people out there that when I cover these topics, you don't need to defend these topics. You need to just understand these topics. And when I say defend these topics, people think that it's an attack on them. This is just part of human nature. When they hear something that they like could be involved with the occult, well, guess what? If you're new to all this stuff, you're going to soon realize that every single thing that's a tradition that's been passed on to us, every single thing that we grew up with around us, from Disney to sports, all these things have a connection to the occult. And yes, even sports like Freemasonry. What do you think the diamond is in baseball a reference to? How do you think they came up with that compass-like shape of a baseball field? That doesn't mean if you watch baseball that you're in the occult or you're a devil worshiper. And just like covering the Yule log, it does not mean if you like a warm fire, if you like a nice fireplace, that you're summoning spirits. But the traditions around these things, such as the Christmas tree and the Yule log, all tie into pagan occult worship. And that's what I'm covering it for, so you can understand why all this stuff is real. And specifically, if you're someone who is an atheist, you will start to realize that you've been duped. It's a very easy thing to make up atheism because it makes zero sense, and somehow people believe it because they're taught it in school, and you're told everything you learn in school is from smart people, intelligent people. All it is an illusion. Everything we've learned in school is nothing more than lies. The history of this country, the history of our world is nothing more than lies, and even calling it a world is a lie in a sense because it's an earth. Because, of course, there is not a universe out there. So we've been duped. And even with things like Christmas, of course, a lot of people out there are aware of the pagan traditions, but the Yule log itself is a tradition that goes back to paganism. Now, there's various accounts going back to Celtic Druids and the Yule log where they talk about how they believe the sun stood still for 12 days in the middle of the winter which is the summer solstice, the winter solstice, which really is Saturnalia. And they say during the time, of course, a log was lit from the remains of last year's fire. It was thought to conquer the darkness, banish evil spirits, and even bring luck and magic for the coming year. And these, of course, are terms that have been normalized in our lives, right? Magic, people hear magic, they're like, magic, that just means good old fun at the Magic Kingdom. And they just do not correlate the word magic with witchcraft because everybody's under a massive spell. So when we talk here about the Yule log, I like to use this clip of the Yule log that I used years ago when I covered Sabrina the Teenage Witch, and I broke down the new Netflix series when it was new about the Baphomet, how they were showing us so many things in there. They even reference the Yule log during it. And of course, if you have people who are openly witches on the show, what do you think they're celebrating Christmas for? People are like, Christmas is about Jesus. It's not about Jesus. It's a pagan tradition, okay? You could see on the show that they have a tree, they have their pentagrams, and then they talk about the Yule log and about demons. Here is a clip from Sabrina.
Speaking of ghosts, it's time to light the Yule log.
Remember, the Yule log is not a decoration. It's burned continuously from now through the shortest day, through the longest night. Otherwise, Satan knows what malevolent forces might come down our chimney. Preaches with perhaps deadly intentions. Keep the log lit.
The solstice blessing.
May the log burn, may the wheel turn, may the sun return.
So what happened with the Yule log, like many of the things in Christianity now in the holidays, they're all, of course, from pagan traditions. But I'm covering this because a lot of you are new to all of this stuff. Now, I'm not telling you how to live your life. I'm not telling you that you're a devil worshiper if you have a tree with lights inside of your home. I'm telling you the origins of these things because there is a difference between partaking in rituals, as you saw there at the end of that Yule log clip, that they were putting a spell on. They were spell casting. Versus having a lit fire in your home isn't going to make you a devil worshiper, okay? But you have to understand that the traditions that are all pushed onto us all come from the occult. They all come from God and the devil, right? This is what it's about. So if anyone out there is atheist and they're like, this, that, and they think that that stuff's real, you have to understand that everything ties back to God and the devil. So the only people who are really, really being duped are the atheists more so, because at least the Satanists know that this is a war between God and the devil. They've chosen the wrong side, And of course, we all hope that they repent and turn to Christ. But a lot of these Satanists, especially the ones in Hollywood, we don't even know if they're human beings anymore because of all the semen, yeah, but all the demons that they've summoned inside of themselves. So, in addition to the Yule log, the church adopted the entire tradition of Yule into its own observance about 1600 years ago, called the Mass of Christ, which also included the Yule ham, the Yule caroling, and other symbols. In preparation of what they looked at as long, cold nights, cities would burn massive trees to provide long-lasting warmth for large crowds. The tree is called a Yule log, and it is also reflected in other traditions and symbolizes candles, chestnuts, for night-long burning fires. As you heard, the fire needs to last for a period of time. And the Yule tree. So the Yule tree is obviously the tree that most people bring into their homes every year. Okay, you're not going to be able to burn the tree inside of your home for obvious reasons, correct? And you're not going to be able to burn your tree inside of your fireplace for obvious reasons unless you have Charlie Brown's tree and it's small enough to fit inside of your fireplace, right? But the Yule tree and the Yule log are tied together. But the Yule tree is pretty much the same thing in a sense. So it derives from the ritual of Thor, in which humans, especially children, were sacrificed before the mighty tree of Thor. A Christian missionary by the name of Saint Boniface came upon a human sacrifice in front of the tree and in a righteous proverb promptly chopped it down. A similar triangular fir tree, which grew from its trunk, was hailed as a symbol of the Trinity and was promptly adopted by Christianity into the Christmas tradition, where it once again became a tree symbolizing God and was merged with the Yule log tradition by adding candles. The Germans also used burning of fir trees in their winter solstice traditions in a ritual to the goddess Hertha, whose spirit would descend in the smoke and divine the future. So you might look at even the clip from Sabrina and say to yourself, well, why are they're trying to keep Satan out of their homes, right? Well, they're trying to protect themselves from evil, wicked forces. So there's irony to that because the show Sabrina is going to portray them as good guys, right? They're portraying the witches and the customs of witches as a good thing. The whole show is filled with human sacrifice, spell casting, and they try to make it like it's something that, Sabrina's the good guy, okay, in the show, the protagonist. So they aren't really keeping the devil away. They're actually summoning and invoking spirits and entities. They're just protecting themselves personally from the spirits harming themselves. So they're using this tradition to bring about demonic forces and demonic entities. And all these traditions that we see done in people's homes, they don't realize that that's what they're doing. You can go look at something as stupid as a Ouija board and think it's just a board game when it's not. You can look at something as stupid as crystals and having crystals inside of your home, but it's not. These are all practiced in witchcraft, and they have to do it. They say, well, it's protection. The crystals are protecting. You're still summoning entities. You might be thinking you're protecting yourself from any of these entities that you're summoning, but when you're doing this stuff and you're trying to summon a spirit for prosperity or summon a spirit to make yourself feel better or in your own mind make yourself look better, whatever it might be, you're still summoning a spirit, and there's no such thing as good spirits, despite what Satanists and witches will tell you. Okay, the Bible forbids summoning of spirits. It forbids mediums, etc. So while I'm covering the Yule log, I'm not saying if you have a fireplace lit that you have a demon entering your home. Okay, you have a fireplace lit to keep your home warm. God understands that. I would assume. I'm not speaking on his behalf. But there's rituals around these things. So they've taken a lot of these pagan satanic rituals and they've normalized them in our everyday lives. So while a lot of Christians aren't partaking in these rituals with the tree or the Yule log, they need to realize that that's what it's really about. Okay, and these things that everyone has grown accustomed to love and want to do and participate in all ties back to pagan worship. So the other thing to note, again, when I talk about these spirits, is that a lot of Christians just dupe themselves into thinking that this stuff isn't about spirituality. And it is. You look at the New Age deception, which Christians fall into, which has a lot to do with, there's a lot of crystal talk in there, yoga, meditation. Okay, this has to do with summoning of spirits. And again, there are no good spirits. When these idiots out there think that they're summoning like their grandmother in their home, like, I'm going to summon grandma. I miss grandma this year. I'm going to summon her with a spell. It's not really your grandma. You're summoning an entity, a deity, a demon, okay? These demons could take on the form of loved ones. You might have dreams about a loved one coming to you and doing something to you or harming you or scaring you, Okay, these demons take on the flesh in a lot of these, what do they call them? Invocations and whatnot. Okay, none of this stuff should be, actually going on inside of a Christian home. But the Yule log, again, it's another thing that we see, that we hear about. They're like, make the Yuletide gay. It's gay already. But they talk about all this stuff, and we see all this stuff. Like, we continue to live amongst atheists, which is the thing that probably drives me just as insane as the notion of people actually wanting to worship Satan over God when they should know that they ultimately lose, but they're so defiant. They think that they're being defiant, at least. They're actually, the new normal is being a Satanist. All the things that are satanic are just normalized in our lives. It's being a rebel is actually being a follower of Christ, but they won't hear any of that because the mind control has worked very well on them. But the atheists out there, all this stuff goes on right in front of us, and they still just believe in this evolution theory. It's incredible. It's incredible. There's a spiritual war going on right now, and all the traditions and all the stuff that's around us all tie back into the occult. So I just wanted to do a video on the Yule log. And obviously, I've been covering this stuff. I'm covering this stuff with Baphomet. And for anybody out there that might remember, I covered, obviously, just recently, I was talking about how they tore down the Baphomet statue. Some of you may remember in the past, I did a video. Well, I'm brand new to YouTube, but some of you may remember in the past that I actually even saw a Baphomet statue out and about, and I decided to purchase the statue so I could smash the Baphomet. Remember this? Of course, I smashed it because the Bible tells us to do this, right? In Deuteronomy chapter 12, verse 3, and ye shall overthrow their altars and break their pillars and burn their groves with fire. And ye shall hew down the graven images of their gods and destroy the names of them out of that place. And of course, I did this because I didn't want some other kid to randomly see that and obviously purchase it because they saw it in a Marilyn Manson video or something else. So I decided to smash that graven image. So for anyone out there that's wondering, why I'm not going absolutely crazy and loving the fact that an idol Baphomet statue got smashed at a Capitol building, it's because it's done by design. And even the person who's responsible for it, I'm sure, with the military background, was probably an agent. Getting DeSantis involved, getting all these people involved. It's very important to see past your emotions on a lot of these stories and understand why they're out there. And the majority of these things have to do not just with hurting, but also with your rights and what's coming. And how they remove rights is by creating events like this, or at least gaslighting events like this, so that certain people's rights can be removed. And the rights they want removed are our rights. And they continue to make us look like the villain in the eyes of the majority of the sleeping masses out there. With events like this, they go, oh, look at the Christians. They're the ones causing a problem. Look at the Christians. They're the ones doing this. They're the ones doing that. And the reality is that Christians are doing nothing wrong in today's world, except for the ones that are allowing the church to be infiltrated by all the LGB and all the other stuff out there. Those people are doing something wrong. The rest of Christians who aren't standing for this stuff are doing the right thing, obviously. So I wanted to show that clip in there because, of course, this whole Sabrina thing that I showed you earlier was based on the Baphomet. And I just always get a kick out of smashing axe in that Baphomet a couple of years ago. What good times, right? Good times. I thank everybody for being here. I hope you're all doing well. God bless you as always and your families.